Part of the revolution begins with the attack on Bastille on July 14, 1789. This would soon force an end to the feudal divisions of the old regime. Fear and mob violence shook the country, including an October uprising in which women marched on the Versailles Palace to demand that the king and his family come to Paris. Beginning on October 4, 1789, the National Assembly decides to abolish all legal privileges of the nobles and the clergy, thus leading to the adoption of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. The Declaration proclaimed that all men were free and equal before the law, that appointments of public office should be based on talent, and that no group should be exempt from taxation.
I hereby enact the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen.
Louis XVI maintained a supportive front towards the revolution while remaining in contact with the rulers of Austria. The king and queen asked Prussia and Sweden for their help in restoring the family to power. The runaways almost escaped across the Austrian border, where they supposed to meet the Austrian army and arrange an attack on the revolutionaries, but instead they were caught just before reaching the border and brought back to Tuileries, Paris. This weakened the king's position and lowered his regard in the eyes of the French people. It made it clear to the only skeptics that he would turn his back on the constitution and his system of limited monarchy at any moment. His days were now numbered. Under the old regime, the Catholic Church was an important pillar within the political and social system. The revolutionaries wanted reform in every aspect of life, including the church. They also needed money desperately. This ultimately led to the selling of church lands, which were seized by the National Assembly, thus resulting in an increase in the state's revenues. A law was later passed called the Civil Constitution of the Clergy, and the church was brought under the control of the state. The new law said that bishops and priests must be elected by the people, not appointed by the church hierarchy and pope. Due to these changes, many Catholics became enemies within the revolution.
Throw it up, watch it all fall out. Blow it up, that's how it.
In September 1791, the National Assembly released the Constitution of 1791, which created a limited monarchy for France. Louis XVI and his ministers would now have to answer to the Legislative Assembly. The Constitution also succeeded in eliminating the nobility as a legal order and established a poll tax, which would ensure the control of the country, staying in the hands of the middle class. As the French Revolution continued, European leaders began to fear the revolution could spread to their countries. Austria and Prussia both threatened to use force in an attempt to restore Louis XVI's power. However, their attempts backfired when the Legislative Assembly decided to act first and declared war on Austria in 1792. The French did badly in the initial fighting and desperately looked for their way out.
We must smother our internal and external enemies. Now, in this situation, our first maxim must be to lead the people by reason and our enemies by terror. I declare war on Prussia and Austria.
In the spring of 1792, citizens became angry due to the defeats in the war and continuing food shortages. Paris radicals decided that the fate of the revolution, thus the Commune, was born. They organized an attack on the Legislative Assembly, as well as the royal palace. This was the time period when the revolution began entering a more violent phase. The king was taken captive, and the Legislative Assembly was forced to suspend the monarchy and call for a national convention. Two groups quickly divided within the Legislative Assembly. The first two were the Jacobins, a group of radical liberals who wanted to forego the constitutional monarchy and declare France a republic. The more moderate members of the Legislative Assembly were the Girondins, who deemed a constitutional monarchy essential. The most notable of these moderates was Jacques Pierre and Brissot. In cities throughout France, a group called the Sans-Culottes formed. Sans-Culottes literally meant without breeches. The group consisted mainly of laborers, peasants, and other French poor who were disdained the nobility. The Sans-Culottes became an increasingly violent and difficult group to control.